part of the reading, which is a bit deeper. And here we start with the gene keys. So in human design terms, we can say the basics is a 1-3 profile. It's a manifestor. Is a manifestor type, and the inner authority is ego authority. That's something that is good to know when we look at the gene keys, especially because we only have 11 of the 26 activations here. We did go quite deeply into the activation sequence or the incarnation cross in part 1. And what I want to kind of go back to is that there is a challenge always between the life's work and the evolution, where a lot of people get stuck. So here the themes is that kind of lack of self-insurance, of self-empowerment, of feeling that you're in your authority. And that can be accentuated because the 21 is an Aries gate that also has to do with the self. And you can see the frequency band here, the low frequencies of control and inadequacy. So when you're stuck in inadequacy, when you think that there are no people or relationship out there that are really worth it, or that will really see you, well, then you stay in that challenge forever. You feel inadequate. You feel like you kind of have to try to control things, but then you're a manifestor. You actually don't want to control anything. You just want to spark. Then it's just kind of, then you just use your energy on something that is draining you with no purpose. And that is kind of what goes into the 39 and the 38. I would say open-head and Ashna as well. We only have 2 center defined in this chart, which is the throat and the ego. So here, I believe that a lot of this kind of control and the inadequacy can go on in the mind. I actually will go back and just show you. I believe that we have a completely open Ashna, and we have only the 64 in the head, which I didn't even remember, but that is the confusion. And the confusion, I feel, is connected more than anything from the thoughts of inadequacy and trying to kind of have some stability or control. So when that happens, the way that the whole gene key spiral works is that the soul is going to feel provoked, of course. The soul is going to feel like it's struggling, that it doesn't have a purpose, and then we don't have any core stability. And then in all relationships, so this is what this is an easy or simple way to look at what happens in the gene keys. Then in all relationships, they're going to feel like discord, and there might be this, or there will probably be with the 5th line, this strategy to try to not manipulate, to try to get what you want. But it's not really on the table often. And it can be the other as well that use those kind of strategies from the mind in the 5th line to get what it wants. But that just creates more discord. And then that goes up to the core wound, which is the 23. And it's going to just strangle harder. So here the complexity comes in, which goes directly back to the open head and Ashna and the confusion. And it feels like spontaneous expression, which is the 23, which is the throat gate, is completely impossible. And then, of course, that would fuel the inadequacy and the feeling that you don't have control and that you can't do it and that you aren't dynamic and that there is no purpose and that relationships are hard or it's not even worth trying. So all this becomes a spiral that goes down, 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 down. So instead, what we want to do is to kind of thread it the other way around. So realizing that by having felt inadequate, your toolbox is so big because you've studied so much, you've done so much, you have an enormous toolbox already. So just if you could look at that from a little bit of different viewpoint, you would already have so much authority in the things that you've done. And you're not here to do them in the world the way that they've been done before, for 2 reasons. One, you are a first line life's work and evolution. You're here to create new. And 2, you're a manifestor. You're here to create new. So whatever your toolbox is and whatever you have taken in, you're going to put it out in a different way in the world. And that's the beauty of how you do it. And that's the basis of the self-empowerment. So when you put it out in a new way, that's when there is a liberation and there's a dynamism, maybe that you are doing with the material what nobody else has done before. And that's going to create a core stability, because you're going to actually lean into what it is to be a manifestor, an ego manifestor. And that's where you also start to feel purpose, and you have that energy to persevere, because you're working in a way that is you manifesting in the world. And suddenly in relationships, maybe before you didn't have even the true discernment of who can be in your life. Maybe you wanted somebody to be in your life and try to kind of, with that fifth line, manipulate them to be there, but these are not the right people. So you're going to have a very different discernment of who can be in your life and who you want to co-create with. So it's a new discernment when you are more in the truth of who you are, living out your profile, your type, your authority. You're going to see that suddenly the right people come towards you, and you can live that sensuality. You have a lot of strings on the guitar, not only in terms of your toolbox, but also here in the attraction sphere in the moon. There are all the different strings, so you can play with the wholesomeness of being close with another person intimately, the playfulness, the role play with the other, the romance and the sensuality. It's like, it's a very rich and juicy intimacy that comes from this, and they can discern when things are not in reciprocity anymore, when things are a little bit out of balance. And then when you are in the spiral in a higher frequency, your spontaneous expression is going to come out in the world, and you are going to know yourself better, because the second line, and we don't have the chart that speaks about the keywords for the core wound, but the second line can be unaware of itself and deny some of the truth that's there, which is that already, for example, your toolbox is really big. Already you have everything you need. That's also the 8th, which is another throat gate. That's also here to be in its unique style. It's very interesting looking at the IQ, which is confusion. And that's also something I didn't think about or see before. I saw it was in the head center, that is otherwise completely open. And then it's also here. So there is a kind of, when we look at those 2 second lines, there can be a denial. There can be not being completely self-aware. You need the other to mirror you. So that's why the kind of courses that we do with Unlock Your Design or Inner Circle membership, those are amazing places for you to get the mirroring of so that you can see yourself clearly, so that you don't deny the truth of who you are and the truth of your expression. So when you start to express that in the world, it's also how you serve the world, by your spontaneous expression. It's not here to be rehearsed. It's not here to be prepared so much. That's not how a manifesto works. It gets the impulse and it happens. I can say something about, I often see how the vocation, the IQ are linked together. We are using the IQ to not feel the pain of the core wound. So it becomes like a mental loop. And here the mental loop would be, there could also be an escape in imagination, in fantasy, that would make you kind of escape this thing that you're not living out your vocation. There's probably something deeper with your parents where there has been a denial of something, and that's what you have felt, and that's part of what hasn't allowed you to be expressing your uniqueness. And in relationships, you need the heart. But the thing is, if you're not living out your true self, and you aren't in the higher frequency of this, like, then your heart cannot even be open to yourself. So how can you experience that in relationships? And there is so much I could say, but what we want to do when we have this loop is that we want to include the SQ, the EQ, and the attraction. So I already spoke a little bit about the higher frequency of the attraction, but you also want to take care of your inner child. So the most important thing here is that you never shame yourself. You're here to have pleasure and joy, and you want to give that to your inner child. Otherwise, she's not going to be happy. And a manifestor child that isn't happy, they don't obey in any case. But if it's not happy, it's much harder to have a relationship with. So you want to make sure you have a relationship with your inner child, and that the last thing you do is shame her. If she feels like she's failing, or if you feel like she's failing, it's about asking, what did I learn from this? What did you learn from this? And then in relationships, I believe that relationships where the heart is there. That's very, very, very important. I think always for the 1-3 to include that fourth line is kind of helping the first line to believe in win-win relationships. And even when it comes to who you invest in, it's that discernment. So you work with the SQ, the EQ, and the attraction, and suddenly this loop that is here with confusion or the imagination of not really wanting to see what it is that you're not doing kind of dissolves. And there is an inherent balance in you, even if you are a manifestor. You're here to be in balance. You're here to be recognized for that. And here I feel like we just have to go back to the cross, 48-21. This is deeply feminine, deeply in the body. This is very masculine. It's fire, it's the spark, it's the action in the outer world. And we have a similar theme here. This is Libra and Aries. And here we have Cancer and Capricorn. So here we have the more feminine, the more nurturing, the more kind of the female that tests when something isn't completely true, so that it can be flooded and the truth can come out. And then the 38 is the Capricorn that's out in the world and the warrior. So here there's also balance between these two. So you're actually here to embody what we would call sacred union, like the mature feminine and the mature masculine. And that's also when you're emotionally are going to feel much more expansive, because there can be an emotional stuckness if you try to just be the masculine or just be the feminine. No, you have several different nuances of feminine, 7 different nuances of masculine that you're here to embody. And the crest of tension is also to learn there's always going to be tension, but that's not what's going to make you not express. You're here to actually express in the world spontaneously. And sometimes people are ready, sometimes they aren't. Sometimes you are ready for yourself, sometimes you aren't. That's your path of realization, both with the 8 and with the 3. And the last thing that is a little bit more advanced I want to go into is the nodes. So there is going to be an agitation in your body that you came in with, and that you are actually quite, you know what it is, and you've had it before in many lifetimes. But you're here to really, the trajectory is to move into your intuition, the presence in every moment. And you have the 57 twice. So it's like that first line, the 6th line, the whole frequency band. And you're here to step into that intuition, to that body. You have a lot of activations here in the spleen, which is open. So important to know about the not self of the open centers, so that you can discern what really is your intuition. So learning to not hold on to any situations that aren't good for you long term. And not good for you means not good for you physically, not good for you emotionally, not good for you psychologically, not good for you spiritually. You want to ask yourself very often, is this good for me? So that could be your living situation, it could be your work, it could be the people you're around. That needs to be scrutinized. Because I feel like even that could lead you into confusion and those second lines where you don't see yourself clearly because you aren't around the right people or in the right environment. So that feels super, super important. I feel you're also going to attract people that have the 31 and the 1 and the 33, because there's something here with your direction and with who you are. I think that the 44, like there is something with attracting your soul fractal where I also feel like it's gonna connect here, which is very much red for you, so kind of unconscious. But I feel like your direction, who you are in the world is going to become clear when you start having those win-win relationships. They are so extremely important for the 1-3. And maybe there's also something kind of unexpected with those relationships. And that's kind of cool with a manifestor, because that's the thing we often feel. A manifestor's in the room and suddenly they just, stand up and they move, and then like everybody's kind of, it feels unexpected because it's a big energy. So I would say you're here to have a lot of interactions as a 1-3. And now maybe, hopefully, the world is allowing that a little bit more. But it could even be, look at Ra Uru, who was a manifestor, and he did everything he did over internet. So you could do that too, but then it's important that you have this other part that is the intimacy, that is the Cancer, that is the nurturing, and everything you have on that side of the chart here, that gets nurtured. Because part of that is both, we can see, your self-expression. We said that we have 2 Black, and then also you in community. Like, it is important that Cancer gets nurtured, but also you are a manifestor, and that comes out in a little bit more of a masculine way. But on the inside and at the end of the day, there is always the intuition that is guiding you. I think that is for this chart for right now. Thank you.